Former US President Donald Trump is now returning to his Bedminster golf club after pleading not guilty to charges relating to alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. It is his third court appearance in 4 months and brings to an unprecedented 78 the number of criminal charges against him.
If convicted and jailed, it is likely he'd lose his right to vote in but not contest the 2024 election, for which he remains the clear Republican frontrunner. Our correspondents are covering it all, including from inside the court. Sarah James in the studio with us as well. Let's bring in North America correspondent Barbara Miller, who was standing outside the courthouse where it all happened in the last hour. Barbara, good morning. A brief court appearance. Talk us through exactly what happened.
That's right. Well, Donald Trump flew in from his New Jersey golf course. His motorcade arrived here at this DC federal courthouse, and he sat in court flanked by a couple of his lawyers. Now, there was a slight delay in the start of these proceedings, but once they got underway, they were indeed brief. The presiding magistrate said that it was a brief hearing, but it was an important hearing. Donald Trump then entered not guilty pleas on all 4 charges he's facing in this his latest criminal case. Now, those charges relate to his alleged attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election, including the charge of conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and that proceeding being the events of January 6, 2021, when Congress met to certify the results of that election in which Joe Biden was the winner. So these brief proceedings taking place just a stone's throw from there, and in the very same courthouse that about 1,000 people who took part or are alleged to have taken part in that riot have now been processed. And those that have already faced sentencing, some of them have faced pretty hefty jail terms. One man sentenced to 14 years. The leader of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, handed down an 18-year sentence. He wasn't actually in the Capitol building, but he was said to have directed people in there. So a day, I think, heavy on symbolism. Donald Trump has now arrived back at the airport in D.C., and we expect him to fly out pretty quickly back to New Jersey.
In fact, we are showing our viewers live pictures of the former president's car. It has pulled up in front of his plane at Reagan National Airport in Washington, and we are about to hear from the former president. His camp has told reporters he will speak. In fact, we'll stay on these live pictures. Barbara, stick with us. The former president is holding an umbrella. He is walking over to the waiting reporters for his comments on what happened in the courthouse. Let's hear from Donald Trump.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very sad day for America. And it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much.
Do you want these trials to happen before the 2024 election?
Donald Trump there, and just correcting something he said there. The main opinion polls do show most of them a tie, although US President Joe Biden is ahead of Donald Trump in the established national opinion polls. Barbara Miller, what is true, though, is Donald Trump is streets ahead of his nearest opponent in the race for the Republican nomination for president. The big question remains, the previous indictments have done little to dent his popularity with the Republican base. The question is, how much will this indictment, much more serious than the others, will affect his chances of again securing the nomination?
Well, what we heard from Donald Trump there is that he's hoping that this one will go exactly as the first 2 went. He's describing it as a witch hunt, as a persecution. And that kind of language has earned him millions of dollars since he was first indicted earlier in the year over the over alleged hush money payments. So he's certainly hoping that he can bank on continuing to be supported by those people who believe that it's a witch hunt. This is a very different case also for another reason. It's here in DC, a heavily Democratic city, and you really heard Donald Trump there laying into DC, really describing it as in decay since he left. Now, because he doesn't enjoy much support here in the Capitol, his team is trying to push this case elsewhere. They would like it, for example, to perhaps be heard in West Virginia. I don't think he's got a lot of chance of that happening, but he would like to at least delay proceedings. But as far as fellow Republicans hoping for that 2024 nomination are concerned, it's a very difficult position for them because many people in the base are sympathetic to those claims by Donald Trump that this is a witch hunt. Yes, these could be seen as more serious charges, but on the other hand, he said that he would pardon the people who have been jailed over the January 6th riot. And we've seen that in the Republican Party, there's certainly a school of thought that it would be better to just put January 6th behind them. So although these may feel more serious, the tactics on the Trump side are the same. And we'll have to just wait for the numbers, I guess, on how much fundraising he does off the back of today. But there was a noticeable difference here compared to Miami. There was many Trump supporters came out. Here, I think that the anti-Trump protesters were in the majority, and what overall were pretty small crowds outside court today.